It's Friday, which means it's fight day, and welcome to Comic Fights. Before we get started, let's dive into last week's episode and let's figure out who won that fight. So we've got Wonder Woman versus Sebastian Shaw. We surprisingly had a lot of people came out in support of Sebastian Shaw, but their theories and their arguments were that Wonder Woman would just beat him mercilessly and just give him all the energy in the world to fight back. And I think that's really downplaying her intelligence. So I think a really good comment here came from Nigel, who said this. Wonder Woman would punch him a few times for sure, but there's no way she'd mindlessly charge him to full without consideration. I see it playing out like this. Shaw stands there, arms crossed, and he says some smarmy shit, and Wonder Woman leaps over and sends him flying with a punch. Not a scratch on him. Maybe she tries again before he counterattacks and surprises her with his strength. Then maybe she hits him once more, or twice more, before realizing he's getting stronger. At this point, she can tie him with a lasso, or drop him from the sky off a cliff or something, or into the water or fire, or hit him with a poison dart, or fly away, or go get a boulder to throw on him, etc. Shaw has no answer to any of these things, and even his energy blasts can be deflected. And that is assuming that they just stumble upon each other one day and fight for no reason. If they have time to prepare, Wonder Woman has an entire intelligence apparatus to figure out who Shaw is, who he's fought, and what his weaknesses are. And that's really the theory that I'm going with too. I think Shaw, I don't think he would get that much energy from her because she would realize what's happening. And really, he's only able to kind of store up this kinetic energy. And like Nigel said, all it really takes is one, let's just knock him out, right? Let's just throw him up in the air and let him fall to his death. Like there's things you could do to counteract his kinetic absorption. And I think Wonder Woman is smart enough to figure that out. So I'm giving the W to Wonder Woman, but a lot of people had some really great arguments for Shaw. I'm just going with Diana. And that brings us to this week. And today we have our first ever epic comic fights. And what this means, I discussed this in my season 2 overview, but every couple weeks we're going to throw in something that makes it a little interesting, where we're going to give characters a weapon, an armor set, something that makes the battle more interesting. So now there's variables. There might be a DC hero with some sort of Marvel artifact that changes up their powers. So today we're starting relatively low scale just to get a feel for what this is like. So today we have Taskmaster versus Deathstroke, and each one of them is going to have a weapon or artifact or whatever to help them in this fight. So first let's start with Taskmaster and what he's able to do normally. He has muscle mimicry, which means he can watch something happen and then duplicate it perfectly. So as he's fighting someone that has a particular martial art, a certain fighting style, he can learn from it, predict what they're going to do, and kind of pick up on this entire martial art and just learn it immediately. The downside is he can't really fight against people that are unpredictable, people that are chaotic. He can't really figure out what they're doing. And he also really doesn't have any other sort of superhuman abilities. He's not super strong. He's not, he doesn't have any sort of healing factor. He's just a guy that's really good at these martial arts and picking up fighting styles. So for this fight, we are equipping Taskmaster with the Adamantium skeleton of Wolverine. So let's just imagine that Taskmaster was in the Weapon X program and gets an adamantium skeleton. He does not get the claws because he does not have a healing factor, and so popping those claws would hurt like hell every single time. So he just has kind of the reinforced skeleton. His bones cannot be broken. His punches pack a little harder because, he's got that metal skeleton in there. And yes, I know that without a healing factor, he probably wouldn't survive the operation to get the skeleton, but let's just pretend for 1 second in this make-believe land that we're creating that he was able to survive. So now let's talk about Deathstroke. Deathstroke is a amped up mercenary who is able to do everything better than the normal person. So he's super strong, super quick. He was basically created to be the best soldier ever. He is super good with guns, knives, all sorts of martial arts. He knows everything. And he does have an accelerated healing factor, which makes what would otherwise be a lethal attack or lethal wound, not so much. So Deathstroke, extremely formidable. And in this fight, we are equipping Deathstroke. He needs more than just a normal sword, so we're giving him the Soultaker sword. And this is something traditionally used by the kind of anti-hero slash villain Katana. Katana has the Soultaker sword. And what this is every enemy that you kill with it, their soul is absorbed into the sword, and the holder is able to communicate with them, learn from them, get wisdom from them. And imagine if Deathstroke had the sword and he's killing plenty of people. He now has access to all of them, all their memories, all their techniques. He's able to communicate with all these people that he's taken down, some of the best of the best. He's able to now kind of become at one with. We're not really sure what the Katana sword is made of, so I know that might come up in the conversation. In the Beware the Batman cartoon, which I'm super not familiar with, but it looks like it's made of all jade, but in the comic books it looks just like a normal metal. So not really sure what it's made of. If any of you have that knowledge, I couldn't find it. That may come into play what the sword is made of. So let's have fun with this hypothetical situation. Taskmaster, able to mimic whatever Deathstroke is doing and armed with an indestructible skeleton. Then Deathstroke, extremely deadly, a healing factor, the best of the best, armed with a sword filled with presumably hundreds of souls that Deathstroke can tap into. So what do you think happens in this scenario? Let me know in the comments. The best comments we're going to shout out next week when we decide who wins the first of these epic comic fights. We'll see you next Friday.
You wanna fight?